In your life, who is truly keeping score? The wins, the losses, the successes, the failures? Or maybe a better way to ask the question is, how many things do you have to get right before you are a success? And how many things do you have to get wrong until you are a failure? Is there a number? And what is that number? How is that calculated? Because you can have a successful period and then a period of failure. You can build up a huge empire and lose it all. Yet we have a tendency to believe that these attributes are fixed, that we are successful or we are not, we are good or we are not. And it's far more temporary than we give it credit for, because you can be good in one moment and bad the next, or you can be good for a lifetime, but when there are true stakes, when there's something to truly lose, your morality then gets in the way of what you want, and maybe you make a bad decision. Does that make you terrible? You could say that you've done everything right up until that moment, but then maybe that moment was the important one. Of course, religion would suggest that it is God who keeps track, as if God is this person with a ledger and he's scoring you throughout your life. But regardless of who makes the final determination, you are the person who keeps score. Throughout your life, this is what is affecting your confidence and self-belief. If you have done no successful things in your mind, then you believe that you are not successful. You don't say, I'm not yet successful. We tend to describe ourselves as absolute. We are a failure, or we are not successful. But really, it could just be that we haven't done something that we were successful in yet. We haven't found the right thing for us. And at a deeper level still, we don't truly know what is successful. Just because something doesn't go our intended way, that doesn't mean it's a failure. It might have been that that was never meant to go right, and the success was the lesson that you learn from it. But if you take it on as you are a failure, or you can't do things, or you will never be successful, then you won't learn the lesson. It will just interfere with doing other things or doing what you are meant to be doing. And we have spoken about this in the last couple of podcasts, so I'm just laying foundational context for kind of the point that I want to discuss, which is we spend so much time rushing through our chapters. We think in the moment, in the micro, that things are bad or that we want to get to somewhere better. And then when we get there, we realize that it was okay all along. Maybe you are auditioning for a part, right? And you're really worried, you're not getting any roles, and you think it will never happen, you'll never be an actor. And in that moment, in that space, whether it's a year or a few months or plenty of years, you are going through all of those emotions of feeling like it's never going to work and nothing's ever going to happen, and what if, all of this anxiety and sadness and depression, getting your hopes up. And in the micro, it's such pain, it's such suffering. And yet, let's say you zoomed out and you kept at it, and then you see, oh, you had one role, and that was your little break, and that led into much bigger breaks. And all of a sudden, your career starts snowballing, and it happens quicker than you ever expected. And from one minute, nothing was happening, to the next, that just in that moment, just before you were ready to give up, where you had been beaten down and you felt like it was never going to happen, it then happened all in an instant. Everything changed in one moment, and you look around and you say, well, I don't know how this happened so fast. What happened? It all happened so quickly. But it didn't. There was all of those times where you were suffering, where, you were going, you were practicing and not getting it and getting frustrated and then practicing again and doing all of these things that were leading you up to get that role. And how many times in our lives do we do this, where we feel like we're in the bad part, or we feel like all of this anxiety and worry about how things are going to turn out, and what happens? It turns out okay. That in the end, it all works out. Or even if it doesn't, exactly how it wanted it to, it works itself out in a way we would have never expected. And I have gotten to this wonderful place of trusting God, trusting the universe, and just knowing that it might not make sense to me. I might not understand why or what is happening or how it's going to happen, but I know that whatever happens, that is what was meant to happen. I don't have to force it to happen. I don't have to make it happen. There's no push or pull. There is acceptance that I do what I intend to do. I have a thought or a feeling or something that I want to bring into the world, something I want to create, and I hold no expectation of how that should come out or how it should be received. It's sort of like art. You should be making art for yourself. Whether it is well received or whether people like it, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you had an idea and you brought something to life. And your whole life is like that. You may have ideas of stuff that you want to do, things that you want to accomplish, dreams that you have. And then you might try to accomplish them and realize that it's actually really not for you, that you don't want that life, or the actual work behind the idea of the dream is not really something you want to do every day. Sort of like people who idolize celebrities and then realize that they wouldn't like fame. They wouldn't like not being able to leave their house, or the constant attention, the constant falsification of appearances to suit others and doing things that are marketable, not that you actually want to do. The real ramifications that come with that life. I can't remember what show it was, but I watched a show when I was younger and it was about a doctor. They went to university and they studied and put all of this time and effort and energy in. And then when they actually got into a hospital and they started their first shift, they realized they really did not like being around blood and sick. And, they went into this sort of spiral of, what am I supposed to be? I've done all this stuff and trained and put all this time in, and what was it even for? And they end up finding something that they like doing much more just because it's better suited to them. And I know that there are things in life that are not so simple, that there are cases in life where accepting them is impossible, where it seems like there can be no logical reason for it, like the death of a loved one, especially losing a child, God forbid. Like, I just cannot imagine what it's like to go through. And yet it's very hard because I'm not in that situation. And it is easy to say that everything happens for a reason. But in actual practice, I don't know. I don't know whether I could truly hold on to that. I hope I could, because I do. I know it to be true. And this doesn't matter what happens. I know for a fact, as irrational or as difficult it is to accept, that there is a reason behind everything. And I may not understand it. It may go against everything that I believe, but there is. And every time I have gone through something, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful, even things that I thought I would never recover from, at the other end, or later in retrospect, I understand that I had to go through it. All of the bad things, I had to go through it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the understanding I have now. I wouldn't have learnt the lessons that I learned. I wouldn't be able to love and receive others like I can. Wouldn't be in touch with my emotions like I am. Everything that I have was earned through suffering. The fact that I love so deeply was earned through suffering and understanding. Going through that myself and then coming out the other side so I could truly empathize with people. I could feel what it's like to be at the very depths. And I could know that sometimes people just need somebody to pick them up, or they just need a bit of guidance. And if I never suffered like I suffered, this podcast wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be who I was today. I wouldn't have half of the experience or wisdom that I have. I had to go through those things in order to meet who I need to be, in order to align with that person. And even though I know this, still on a day-to-day micro, I feel very frustrated. Sometimes I feel anxious. Sometimes I get upset or feel angry. I feel like I want something to happen and I can't understand why it won't happen, or I feel like I need to do more to make it happen and not just do and trust that it will unfold the way it needs to unfold. Because if you want something, it's easy to do something and then feel like, well, I could have done more, or maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that, instead of realizing that maybe it wasn't meant to work in the first place. Maybe that outcome was never meant to be yours. So even though I have those emotions, or I have those thoughts, or I have those feelings, I come to this place now where I realize, where I understand that it's okay. Like, I'm meant to feel those things. That is the human aspect, and that is the human experience. That's what I'm meant to go through. But that is only one perspective, the micro versus the macro. And at the macro, it's always beautiful. It's always wonderful. It's always going to work out. Everything is exactly as it is meant to be. And sometimes in the micro, it's, complete dog shit. Like, I'm fighting through every day, struggling, trying to make it work, just trying to keep things together. Everything's going wrong. And even in that micro, I still try as hard as I can to remind myself that it's not everything. Just because it is bad now, that does not mean life is bad. I used to catch myself saying things like, fuck my life, or I hate my life, or anything like that. And right now I've just cut all of that out. I never say that. And if I do, I'd really try and make a conscious effort to then rewrite that and not say things like that, or say the opposite of that. I love my life. My life is wonderful. Everything is going to work out for me. Because when you get that in your mind, that, one bad thing or even a whole series of bad things, that doesn't make life bad. Just because a bad thing happens, that doesn't make the universe bad. It doesn't make God bad. It doesn't make anything bad. It's just momentary and perspective. That doesn't even guarantee it to be a bad thing. But when we change the narrative or implement a new way of thinking, where we consider both the micro possibilities and the macro possibilities. Because the real truth is, it could be so many different combinations of possibility that it's not even worth thinking about. It's so complex and has so many variables and could mean so many things or have so many reasons that it's really not worth getting into all of this fuss about. It's not worth worrying and being anxious and all of that. It's not. Because it could be that the thing that you are trying is not meant to be successful. It could be that it's meant to test you to see if you really want it. It could be that you need to keep trying in order to get better, to then finally be ready for when it comes. Because if it gave it to you now, maybe you'd mess it up. And there are so many reasons. Like, this is just a tiny, tiny iota of a vast list of reasons that what you're feeling could be that. It could be exactly what you're feeling, and it could not be. It could become something completely different. The intention of the universe could be so far away from what you believe, and you could only see it if you saw your whole life. But you don't. You only see this moment, and in this moment, you might be suffering. But that suffering could be for a very, very, very good reason. It could be that this is exactly what you need to go through in order to grow, to be who you need to be, to align with who you want to become, who you need to become. You don't know. You don't know what is going to happen or how it is going to happen or what your life will look like. So this idea that you can wrestle life into submission or control it to give you what you want, have a bunch of happy times and no sad times, have all the good but no bad, it's futile. There is no point. There is no point forcing things. All you can do is flow, like a boat on the waves. It's not trying to control the waves, it's just doing the best to ride on top of them and to stay afloat. And that is your job, to experience life without trying to fight it, without trying to submit it. Just go out there and live your life without worrying so much all the time. Thank you for listening.